So 2 years ago, I separated from my husband and I moved into my mother's second story, 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in a secure building. It's a lovely community with beautiful landscaping, ponds, swans. We have a clubhouse with a gym, an indoor pool, and an outdoor pool. And I've embraced swimming these last 2 years to kind of help manage my anxiety and stress over my impending divorce. About a year and a half into living with my mother, I realized I feel really safe here. And I never really had this feeling before, not living at home with them as a child or in my house with my soon-to-be ex-husband. At the age of 17, I developed a fear of staying alone in my house at night without anybody else there. And in the beginning, I sometimes even was afraid to sleep alone in my own bedroom, even if my parents and my brother were home. On those nights, I would sneak into my brother's room and sleep in his extra bed. On nights that my parents and my brother were out of town, I would go around the corner and sleep at my aunt and uncle's house. Later, after college, when I came back home in my 20s, if my parents were out of town and my brother was out partying, I would kind of try to find him and have him come home and babysit me. You know, this was before cell phones, so somehow I found him. At age 27, I got married and we got a house. And I still had this fear to be alone in the house at night when my soon-to-be ex-husband traveled or stayed out much later than expected. When I had kids, I was able to manage my fears much better because I was their protector. You know, I couldn't be afraid. So I don't quite remember being afraid of much of anything before the age of 17, but it all started the night I decided to jump off the garage roof. Senior year in high school, I was at a girlfriend's house. It was springtime, and we had just watched Rosemary's Baby. For those of you who are too young to know what that movie is, it was a 1970s high-end horror movie. It had top-notch actors from the 1970s, and it was about Satan worship, and the main actor, Mia Farrow, was impregnated with the devil's child. Anyway, I got home about 12:30 that night. My parents and my brother were upstairs asleep. My parents never woke up. They never checked up on me when I got home. We didn't have a curfew. I didn't abuse it. I went upstairs to get ready for bed, and our dog, a German Shepherd, Ginger, started barking at the window. I thought it was kind of odd. She didn't do that. Anyway, I got into bed, closed the door and got into bed. And no sooner did I get into bed than I heard a door open and very heavy footsteps. And then my door opened. And the person walked into the room, and I had sheet music from practicing the guitar all over the floor, so I could hear crunching of the papers. The person walked in halfway, and then walked out and closed the door. I lay there frozen in bed. I didn't know who this was. I didn't quite know what to do. I just felt like I needed to escape. Now, we've lived in this house for 4 years, and my bedroom was above the garage roof. Not once in those 4 years did I ever climb out my window and go out onto this garage roof. But this night felt like the time to do that. So I got out of bed in my nightshirt, no shoes, no jacket. I cranked open the window, climbed out over the windowsill, got out on the garage roof, got to the end. It was a long way down. So I figured I'll hang from the end of the garage. It'll be a shorter drop. And I stuck that landing like the good gymnast that I was. And I went next door to a young couple who had a baby who I often babysat for. By this time it was probably about 1 a.m. I banged on the door, and they obviously were asleep because they came to the door with bathrobes on. And I said, "There's someone in the house. I'm really scared. There's something going on. I don't know what's going on." So we called the police. And the police came, and we went back to my house, and we knocked on the door, and I was standing in the front lawn looking up at the window, and it must have been a pretty moonlit night, because I remember seeing my father's face in the window, and he's looking at me like, "What the hell is she doing?" And downstairs, my mom and my dad came downstairs, they opened the door, and I'm like, are you okay? I think there's someone in the house, I was really afraid. And I said, someone came in my room. And my mother looked at me, and she said, that was me, checking up on you. Remember, she never did this before. So, I grew up in a really loving family, and we really enjoyed spending time together. We liked to play card games and board games, and we liked to go out to eat and travel. And my brother and I knew our parents really loved us and would support us in anything that we wanted to do. But we all had difficulty identifying and expressing our emotions and our feelings, and deep conversation was pretty limited. And my marriage was the same. As a kid, I escaped into books. Socially, I escaped into myself and kind of kept my opinions and thoughts to myself. When I got to college, I met some wonderful women who helped break me out of my shell and created a safe space for me to communicate and express myself. And they're my best friends today. And after much therapy, both traditional and alternative, I learned to identify my feelings and my emotions and be able to express myself and communicate in a much healthier way until I left my marriage 2 years ago. Now, living with my mother now for the past 2 years, she checks up on me a whole lot more than she did when I was a kid. She no longer walks with very heavy footsteps. In fact, she's so quiet that she startles me when she comes in to talk to me. But now, instead of getting scared and feeling like escaping, I can laugh and I don't feel the need to escape. So, I think I feel safe living in this secure building, not just because it's secure, but because I feel safe being myself, speaking up, being able to express myself. And I feel an inner peace that I never had before growing up, either in my parents' house or in my marriage. And I no longer feel the need to escape physically or emotionally as a coping mechanism.
Thank you, Denise. I was thinking about your story earlier, and all I could think about was, thank God you didn't have a gun. When your mom came in, it crossed my mind, and so I just thought I'd share that.